Okay, so good afternoon everyone. Okay, so I better start now because we have only 1 hour for lecture. Okay, only 1 hour for lecture to finish all the introduction to statistics. Okay, all right, so you can get this materials from my times. Okay, download from there. Okay, all right, so chapter 1. Okay, so for those who didn't take the attendance, I will open again the code. Okay, all right, so this one is a chapter 1. Okay, introduction to statistics. Okay, what is your first thought about the statistic? When someone asks you what is statistic, what will be the simple answer? Calculation, maths, formula, huh? Data, calculation, formula, long formula, and so on, right? Okay, so basically we will study on the definition of statistic, okay, today, and then the type of variable, the type of data, okay, qualitative and quantitative. Okay, all right, so some people hate the very name of statistic, but I find them full of beauty. Okay, so let's prove it lah today. All right, okay, so we see that the learning outcome for this today's lecture, by the end of the topic, students should be able to define the type of statistic. Okay, and the second one is to understand the type of variables. Okay, because for this statistic will be involved with the data. Okay, and then when we involve with the data set, we will include the variables. Okay, all right. So the table of content here is why we need to study statistics. Okay, and then we define definition of statistic, type of statistic. We have descriptive and also the inferential. Okay, and then we have basic statistical term. Okay, and then we have the type of variable, qualitative or quantitative. Okay, and then we have the level of measurement, either this one is continuous or either this one is a discrete. All right, and then we have the sources of data. We have primary sources of data, and then we have secondary sources of data. All right, so okay, why we study statistics? Okay, this is because data are everywhere. Okay, you can see the data related with the economics. You can see the data related with the social science, the total number of population. Okay, and then also you can see the data from the medical. Okay, what else? Business study also, they use the statistic and they apply the data. So that is why statistics are needed in those fields. Okay, all right. So statistical techniques are used to make many decisions that affect our life. Okay, so from the statistic itself, we can make a decision, either this one or this one, based on our population and sample, and based on our objective and the study interest. Okay, all right. So we have a definition of statistic. Okay, so basically the definition of statistic is the science of collecting. Okay, after you collecting, we simplify, we describe, and also we draw a conclusion based on the data collected from the sample. Okay, based on the information we gather, we want to make a conclusion. Okay, all right. So basically, if they ask you about the statistic, you can define them in terms of science of collection of data and information to make a conclusion based on the population of interest. Okay, right. So this is the basically the definition. Okay, all right. So we go with the type of statistic. Okay, we have two types. The first one we have the descriptive, and the second one we have the inferential. Okay, so basically for the descriptive, what we have, let's say we want to study about the Malaysian population. Are you possible to get all the data? How many population in Malaysia? 27 million. Updated or latest this one? Please check. What is the number of population? Total number of population in Malaysia for this year, for last year, 2023. 34 already. 34 million, right? Okay. So is it possible to get all the data that you want? Yes? Yes or no? If yes, how? If no, how? No. Why? Why? Is it possible for us to get all the sample from all the population in Malaysia? From the Malaysian? If anyone. If. But if they want to share, how? They didn't want to share the information, how we get? Cannot. Possible or not? Possible. Okay. Actually, possible, but then a very, like a big chance to get all the information right, okay? So that is why the sampling is being introduced, okay? All right, from the population, we introduce a sampling to get only the sample, but then the sample must be taken by a random one, okay? You cannot select, you cannot bias in selection, okay? You need to do the randomization, okay? All right, so based on the type of statistic, we have two statistics, which is the first one is a descriptive, and then we also have the inferential, okay? So basically, for the descriptive statistic, you just collect the data from the sample, okay, and then you measure the mean. You measure the median and so on. This one is related with the, what? With the descriptive, okay? Okay. All right, so the first one is a descriptive. Okay, the first one you get all. Collect all the information. Okay, so collect all information. What type of information that you want? The age of the Malaysian, right? Let's say the age of the Malaysian. So you collect all the data, all right? Okay, so after you collect all, you want to see the mean, you want to see the median and so on. Okay, all right? And then you see from the standard deviation, so you can use the descriptive statistic. Okay, all right? And then we need to change, or we need to transform all the data into the meaningful way. Okay, let's say you collect the age of the Malaysian. This is all the data. Age 1, age 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, until 200. Let's say 200 of number of sample, you get 200. Okay, so these 200 you can transform into the graphical and into the numerical. How we want to transform into the numerical? We can draw the histogram, we can draw the, what else? Bar chart. Is it bar chart? Okay. Histogram, bar chart, or any other graphical measure. That's why we call it as a graphical. All right. And then for the numerical, we can calculate the mean, we can calculate the median, we can calculate the mode. Okay. That one is the descriptive statistic. Okay. How about the inferential? The method used to determine the something about the population on the basis of the sample. Okay. All right. So we have the Malaysian population, 34 million, right? This one is the population, all the Malaysian. All right. So we only take sample few. Let's say you just only take 2,000 sample. Okay, this one is the population, and the sample is the subset from the population. So we only take 2,000 sample. Okay, and then how we going to take the sample? From the randomization. Everyone got the same probability to be selected as a sample. Okay, all right. So from the 2,000, we can make the inferential about the population. Okay, all right. So how the situation? How's the situation, Sham? How's the situation for the inferential? How? For example, we want to study the relationship does the age affect the chronic disease? This one we call it as a inferential. Okay, based on this sample, we want to study and then make a conclusion about the overall population. Okay, does the age, this one is one of the illustration for you to better understand on this topic. Okay, so does the age affect the chronic disease among the Malaysian? Okay, maybe you can use another things. Okay, anything which is to indicate the relationship. That is why we are using the inferential. Okay, but for this descriptive, the value is only exact value. For example, if you have the sample, okay, and then you find the mean will be exact. Okay, but then for the inferential, it's like you are making the assumption about the population based on the sample that you have. Okay, right. So this is the inferential statistic. So basically, we have two types of statistic. The first one is a descriptive, and the second one will be the inferential. Okay, making the hypothesis testing as well. Okay, right. Okay, so this one is the population. Okay, so this one is a population, sample, parameter, and statistic. Okay, so population is the entire group to be studied. Okay, entire group to be studied. Does the age affect the chronic disease among Malaysian? Okay, so the population is a Malaysian, all Malaysian. Okay, all right, so after that, we take the sample. Okay, among all, we take only the few. Why we didn't take all the data? It is impossible for us to collect all the data. Why? Because it will be time consuming. You need to travel to take all the details, to take all the data, and to collect all the sample. The third one is what? Costing, right? Where you need to travel, okay, time consuming, okay, because whenever you want to take all, okay, some of the citizens will not be share their information. Okay, so that is why we only take the sample. Okay, that's a reason. All right, that's a reason why we need to take the sample over the population. Okay, all right, so from this figure we can see that overall population, and then we get the sample from the population. Okay, all right, so for the population we emphasize with the parameters. Okay, under the population we have the parameters. So what is parameter? It's a major characteristic of the population. All right, it's the major characteristic of the population, whereby this one, for the parameters, you see that this one is a mu, this one is the sigma square, this one is the sigma. This one is referring to the population, and then we have the statistic. Statistic is to measure characteristic of the sample. So if you write like this, mu is equal to x bar. Okay, this one is a sigma square, and then this one is a sigma. Okay, so in statistic, you write this one, we know that you are referring to the population. If you write like this notation, we know that you are referring to the sample. For example, the number of total population will be n. This one we know, the total population, but the number of sample is small n. Okay, so we know this one. You don't need to write total population. No need, you just write n. Oh, we know already this one is the total population, or the size of population. Okay, what is mu here? What is mu, class? The mean. The mean for the population, and x bar is the mean for the sample, or sample mean. Okay, this one is a sigma square, is the variance, and then the sigma is the standard deviation. Okay, so you just put the symbol there. Okay, all right. Okay, so basically parameters. Okay, and then we have the population parameters. Okay, population parameters, sample, statistic. Okay, so in the question, how you gonna recognize that one is the question related to the population? Sometimes they will give you all. all students. So it means that this one is a population. Okay, if the sample, they will give you a part of, or maybe a group of, so that one is referring to the sample. Okay. All right, so we see the example of population and sample. Okay, this one is the example of population and sample. All right, so population, you see that in the big, what you call? Rectangle? A square. In the big square, all right? Okay, so you see that this one is related to the population because it is involve all the item of our interest lah. And then we see that we only selected few. Okay, how the method of the selection for the sample? It must be randomized. Okay, which means that everyone has an equal chance to be selected. Okay, all the item has an equal probability of being selected. Okay, there is no selection bias in selecting our sample. Okay, there is no selection bias in our sample selection. How? If you select with the bias, what will affect your analysis, right? Your analysis will be affected if you are not follow the selection bias. Okay. All right. So we have some of the basic statistical term. Okay. The first one is a experimental unit. Okay. So normally for the experimental unit we have object. Okay. It is deal with the object. All right. Object either people or thing. Okay, on which measurement is taken, where you take the measurement. For example, okay, if you want to study the the body height of a student, so the experimental unit will be the student lah. Okay, all right. So the census is to conduct measure a variable for every item in the population of interest. For example, what? It's a survey. Okay, you collect the information from the census, all right? And then we have a sample survey, okay? So the sample survey, a study involves a subgroup or sample of a population, whereby the sample survey is related with the form, Google form, questionnaire, and so on, okay? All right, and then we have the variables and also data, okay? Some of the basic statistical term is a variable and also the data. All right, so what is the variable? Variable is the measure, the characteristic of the population that researcher want to study. Okay, what you want to study? What you want to study? Maybe you want to study about the lung cancer, right? Or disease. Or maybe your academic, your CGPA, right? What is the factor affected the CGPA? So you say that this one is a factor that affect your CGPA. That factor that affect your CGPA. So the first variable that you consider, what is the variable? What is the factor, the first factor? Hour of study, right? Okay, next. Oh, lecturer, okay. Lecturer. Okay. All right, next. Huh? Attendance. Okay, next. Assessment. Okay, assessment. All right, so this one we can consider as a factor. Okay, this one is, we call it as a factor or variable. This one is a variable related with your study. Okay, how about the number of meals taken per day? Does this one affect your CGPA? Maybe affect, maybe not. Okay, this one, number of meals taken. How many times you eat a day? Does it affect the CGPA or not? Badan sihat, otak cergas. Huh? Okay, so we don't know. This one is a variable of the study or not. Okay, all right. So After that, in the statistic also we can check which of the variables are significant or not significant to be included in your study. And the one they consider as a genetic. Does the genetic affect the CGPA or not? Okay? Whenever you fail, you say you blame your family. Okay? Alright, that cannot, okay? So you need to check which one are significant or not significant to be included in your study. Okay? So this is all the variables. Okay? Alright, so the rest we have data. Okay? So we have data measured on a variable of interest obtained from a sample. Okay? So data is hours of study. You go and collect the data. How many hours of study from the first sample until the last sample. Okay, this is all related with the data. Okay, alright, so this one parameter and statistic are the same. Okay, alright, and then the sampling frame, so no need lah this one. Okay, so we move to the type of variables. Okay, we move to the type of variable. We have the variable is the characteristic of the population of interest. Okay, for example, the first variable is age, gender, okay, monthly income. That one is a basic variables. Or maybe you can understand from this concept. This one is also the variables. Okay, all right. So we have a quantitative and also we have qualitative. Okay, so the type of variable we have two, qualitative and also the quantitative. Quantitative is related with the numerical. Okay, qualitative is related with the attribute or categorical. Okay, for example, okay, for the quantitative is a numerical one. How tall are you? Okay, so you need to measure, and then it is involving the numbers there. Okay, it is involved the number. All right, but for the qualitative, okay, it is representing the attribute there. Okay, so the question is related to the, are you a Malaysian? So, okay, I am 1.25 Malaysian. Cannot. Okay, if you are Malaysian, then yes. If you are not Malaysian, no. Okay, cannot be, I am negative 1.238 Malaysian. Okay, not really, cannot. Okay, if you are Malaysian, you're Malaysian. If you are not Malaysian, means that you are not Malaysian. So there is a difference between quantitative and also the qualitative. Okay, quantitative always related with the numbers. Okay, when it is related with the numbers, so you need to measure them. All right, so under the quantitative, we have a discrete. Okay, and then we also have the continuous. Okay, for the discrete is something that you count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so when you count how many students in this class, you say that one, oh, we have 167 students in this class. I don't say that 167.5 students in this class. Okay, because the discrete is related with the integers. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Right? But for the continuous, you need to measure. Okay, please differentiate between the count and measure. Measure, you need the measuring equipment. Okay, for example, your body temperature, you go and scan your body temperature during the COVID, that one is a continuous. Okay, all right, but then for the discrete, how many marker pen I have today? So that one is a discrete. Okay, right. Any other S? All right, okay. So for the qualitative also, it is related with the categorical. For example, your hair color, right? So black, yellow, green. Okay, so that one is a clear distinction between each of them. Okay, that is why we call it as a qualitative. All right, so under the level of measurement, okay, under the level of measurement, we do have the nominal, we do have the ordinal, we do have the interval, and also we have the ratio. Okay, so the first one, the nominal. Okay, the nominal is the identification or categorical. Okay, for example, place of birth. Your hometown, right? So your hometown is in Negeri Sembilan, not Sembilang. Okay, Ipoh. So that one is Ipoh. Ipoh is Ipoh. You cannot mix Ipoh with the Melaka or what. Okay? So that one is we call it as a nominal. Ordinal is related with the order. Okay? Low, moderate, and high. Okay, that one is a ordinal. Okay? This is the type of data. Interval, the measure the difference or distance. Okay, for example, the temperature from the Kelvin, right? What is the starting point for the temperature in Kelvin? 0 or what? In Celsius, we have negative and also we have the positive, right? Okay, but then for the ratio, the starting number cannot be negative. Okay, it is always positive, right? For example, the body weight. So the body weight cannot be negative. I am negative 1.2 kilogram today because of diet, effective diet. No, we cannot. Okay, same also the distance. Okay, the distance my home to where? My house to Taylor's. Okay, you cannot say negative 20 kilometer. Cannot. This is always positive. So the ratio is always, the value is positive. Can the distance be negative value? No, right? Okay, always positive. Okay, your body weight also. Okay, starting from baby also positive. Okay, if you say your body weight is negative, you're against the nature. Okay, cannot against the nature, alright? Okay, so that is why the ratio. Alright, so the sources of data. After this, we see the data set about the diabetes. Okay, the same. Alright, so source of data, we have primary data, and then also we have the secondary data. Alright, so primary data based on your, the information is obtained first-hand by the researcher on the variable of interest. Okay, where to get the first data, primary data? How to get the primary data? Survey. Okay, survey like you are doing the questionnaire and then you just, what we call, forward your Google form and so on. This one is we call it as a primary. Now, we still have a questionnaire or not? Still have. Okay, but then I think more we are using the technology, right? We are forwarding all the link. Okay, please fill up the survey and so on, so on, so on. Okay, all right, okay. So this one is we call it as a primary data. Okay, all right. So advantage is more accurate like the raw data, right? So this one you get the information directly from the sample. Okay, and then disadvantage is a more time, manpower, and then higher cost. Okay, sometimes you need to get the data from the rural area and so on. You need to travel. It is all costing. Okay, otherwise if you don't travel, they won't share their information. And sometimes the place that you want to get the data, they don't have any, what we call, equipment, such as the technology and so on. Okay, you need to go and ask them. Okay, what is this, and then they will share the information. Okay, otherwise they won't fill up the Google form. Okay, all right, this one is we call it as a primary data. What is the secondary data? Information gathered from the sources that already exist. Okay, so you can get the data from Benegara, Department of Statistics, or we call it as a DOSM, and some of journal. Why we call it as a journal and textbook is a secondary data? Why? Because maybe the first author has modified the data, right? According to their research study. Okay, right. Possibility is there. Okay, advantage is inexpensive. Okay, can get easily. Okay, all right. But then disadvantage is a may lack accuracy. Okay, there may be bias. Maybe the data has been used, but then you reuse the data. Okay, the first data that being used is related with their study, but their study a bit different with the previous one, so maybe it will be biased to you. Okay, so that is why it is important. Okay, so this is for today, but then I will show you the data. Okay, the data also you can get from the My Times, okay, right? So you see from here, can see clearly or not, class? This is the what? Collecting the information. You get all the data. Okay, this data is all about the diabetes. Okay, diabetes. For those who taking the previous module, maybe they have worked on this data. Okay, so we have how many variables? Okay, this data is we want to predict either the patient has a diabetes or not. Okay, so 0 from this column here, the 0 indicate that the patient is healthy lah, not having the diabetes, and then 1 is the patient have a diabetes. So you want to predict either the patient has a diabetes or not, okay, based on this variable of interest. For example, your first is pregnancy. Does the pregnancy affect the diabetes or not? Okay, or maybe does the glucose affect the diabetes or not? Okay, or maybe pregnancy and glucose affect the diabetes patient or not? Okay, based on the variable here. Okay, all right. Why we need to predict this one? Based on this variable. Why? Because sometimes the BMI is overweight also, they don't have the diabetes. Okay, sometimes the age elderly also still healthy, but then sometimes the youngest one has a diabetes. Okay, that is why we need to predict based on the information collected. So, this one is considered a large data or not? So far we have 700 row. Okay, 700 row of data. Okay, so this one is considered as a large data with the multiple data set, multiple variables. Okay, so okay, the BMI one. You see that this one, the BMI? Okay, this one is qualitative or quantitative? Yes. Okay, so class, you see that this one. Okay, the BMI one, is it this one is a qualitative or quantitative? Why quanti? Why quanti? Because it is involving with the numerical. Okay, it is involving with the numerical, so this one is a quantitative. Okay, continuous or discrete? Continuous. Why? Because we measure the BMI. We do not count the BMI. We measure the BMI. So this one is a continuous. All right. So glucose is also the quantitative because it is related with the what? Numerical. Okay, because there's number. Okay, and this one outcome is only 0 or 1. This one we call it as a binary. Either you get the diabetes or you are healthy. Okay, 0 healthy, 1 you get the diabetes and so on. Okay, all right. Same like the binary variables such as positive or negative. Okay, yes or no. Okay, pass or fail. That one is only have a 2. Okay, all right. So what else? If we race, race here. Maybe we put the Malay, Chinese, Indian, and others. So that one is a quantitative or qualitative? Qualitative, right? Because there is a clear distinction between each of the category. Okay? All right. So this one is a qualitative and quantitative first. For the second week, qualitative or quantitative. Okay? The rest we will study on more on the statistical term lah. All right? Okay? Any question for today, class? So we can finish earlier today, all right? So please, you can complete the tutorial 1, but then not all the tutorial 1, only few, okay? Only few the tutorial 1. Okay, so we will discuss the tutorial 1 tomorrow whenever we have class. Okay, all right. So study and understand the concept of statistics and the data. Okay, see from the data, all the materials are already on my times. Okay, all right. So that's all class for today. Okay, see you tomorrow.